It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back on Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Barnett Bain with my co-host Freeman Michaels and our guest Maury Smith. Before the break, Freeman, you had a menu.
I did.
You had a Chinese menu.
I had a couple of things I want to chat about.
Yeah. I want dinner number 3. Why don't we chat about dinner number 3?
Here's what I came to, and I don't feel like I'm ahead of the curve on this. In fact, probably everyone is going duh, but I was in San Francisco, and I went and I use Yelp a lot, which is a way of just checking people's comments. I do this when I travel, of course. I use the travel sites to see what people say about various, hotels or cities or whatever. Stuff. I was in San Francisco and I wanted a yoga place. And so I just pulled up a yoga place. I found it. I went and had a great experience. And then when I got home, I decided to give my own review of it and share that on Facebook. And when I shared it on Facebook, all these people were commenting on it. And fortunately, a friend of mine happened to be in San Francisco at the same time, and he said, "Hey, I'm in San Francisco, let's meet." So that was really a nice little benefit of that. But I really realized Goodwill is the new bottom line. Like at no time in history, and it's interesting because it's on a balance sheet. On a balance sheet, Goodwill is one of the line items, and it's given a dollar figure.
What can you give?
Yes.
It becomes the bottom line more so than what can I get and how can I manipulate?
Well, and reputation and what the quality is in something. It's quality driven. And so, again, I thought about the publicity that I generated in not only writing the review on Yelp, but then in posting it to Facebook, and then all the half a dozen people that commented and the dozen or more people that liked it. That's huge, Mari, isn't it?
It is massive. Gary Vaynerchuk is a friend of mine. He's a fellow social media ninja evangelist, has an agency out in New York. So Gary said that, social media is basically word of mouth on steroids.
Yes.
It's exactly as you just did, Freeman. You had a nice experience, and conversely, when people have a less than positive experience, they can go out and tell hundreds of people, friends.
Thousands. It lasts forever.
It can turn into thousands, exactly. And so, they use this term influencers now, and all these different ways of labeling how people, how many reach. Reach is another term coming out. So, I love what you said about quality-driven and about reputation. I always think, I'm a personality-based brand. I protect my reputation fiercely. And I always think that integrity is doing the right thing, even when nobody's watching. So I know I can always sleep peacefully at night, knowing there's never anything out on the Internet, under my control anyway, that I have actually, clicked a button or written about or replied to somebody that's in any way, shape, or form something that I can't live with. And before I post anything, I always ask myself, am I comfortable with this being found in a Google search or splashed across a big billboard or New York Times, big major newspaper, or proud of my own mom to see. And so with that filter, I know I can keep my reputation impeccable. At the same time, you've got major brands and businesses, restaurants you're mentioning, and hotels. An awful lot of that is out of their control. But they have to, as a company, they have to have these internal social media policies. They have to do some intense training with all their employees, from the janitor to the CEO, to understand how their company utilizes these social technologies and how they're managing their own reputation. So really jumping in there promptly and courteously and fixing things when a customer has a complaint,
Well, you are not only a pundit, vis-a-vis the area of social network, you are also a very highly sought-after consultant in this space, and you work with various and many major corporations. And what is the first thing that you advise when you come in to an organization, when you are working with IT, or let's broom past that, when you work with the executive suite of a major corporation and you are assessing what their needs are and informing them of what their interests, where their interests might lie, what they might want to put some attention toward. What are the kinds of areas that you typically turn to?
Well, obviously all of this has to tie to business goals, and ultimately what we want to measure is, are they making more sales, or are they saving costs in customer service and production, etc.? And a third area to measure might be brand sentiment. How does the public at large feel about their brand? And that their reputation, those kinds of things. But ultimately, for the CEO, the CFO, they want to know, how's this impacting our bottom line? And because it's kind of hard to wrap our head around, and for many years now, a lot of companies have been, a lot of social media consultants, and it's kind of a free-for-all for many years, a big shakeout now, and it's really, companies are obviously hiring trusted advisors and consultants and experts. You can't go to the CEO, the main executive suite, and say, oh, you got, 50 retweets today, and you grew your fan base by 100 new fans. They're like, okay, so what? Show me the money. How does that impact our bottom line? So there's many different pieces and layers that have to go in place. And one of the first things we would do after doing a clean sweep of seeing where their entire online presence is at right now is finding out who's responsible for being what we call the CLO. The CLO is a Chief Listening Officer. Mm-hmm. And all that person's job is, and it could, a lot of people, they just bring in an intern or a junior member of staff, fair enough, but never have an intern or junior member of staff being like the voice and face of your company and responding to tweets and doing all the moderating on the fan page. That has to be somebody who's extremely knowledgeable about the company, the products, the culture, what they can and can't say. But ultimately, a CLO is a person where there are some tremendous systems out there that have these full-on dashboards and literally like Command Central with all these computer screens, and you're going to tap in to see what's being said about the company, the brand, the staff, the experience, the customer service, anywhere, anytime online through Twitter, Facebook, like you mentioned, Yelp. Now we've got this Pinterest that's going nuts right now, and then what to do and how to respond. So, there's many companies. Radian 6, numeral 6, they're one of the leaders in this area of the social dashboards and listening technologies, and at enterprise level. So there's many choices out there, but that's certainly one.
I love the title Chief Listening Officer, and I like it, though, from a slightly different vantage point. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you may or may not know this, but Barnett has been, obviously he's got the creativity piece. It's something we talk about a lot and work with together, but he's been hired by a number of companies to come in and help with creativity because they're realizing that innovation and the ability to respond quickly in a world that's changing so rapidly is really critical. And I have been hired to come in and do some executive coaching by a consultant who really said, look, to the CEO of this company, you have to look at your situation more systemically, that there's a holistic approach where this integrity piece, which you mentioned earlier, is there's some flaws in the whole business culture. This company is still caught a little bit in command and control kind of management style, and it's not promoting the kind of, dare I say, energetic quality that emits a bright shining face and a happy message, and they know that, and so there's almost as if they can't control it even on the social media side because it's going to leak out, and they're looking now at doing some executive coaching to try to bring their people into more coherence and into a level of integrity, which for me means integrated, by the way, where we really are allowed to take these sides of ourselves and develop into more of a whole person, or dare I say, a whole company. Do you know what I'm speaking about?
Oh, it's beautiful. 100% agree. What's really cool is social media as an industry per se is evolving to become social business.
Right.
What a social business looks like is that the entire internal workings of the company has that element. Many of these elements we've been discussing today about that transparency and authenticity, and they're open, and you don't pass by somebody in the office corridor, hallway, and just kind of like ignore them or whatever. You know something about them. People are genuinely going out their way to befriend one another, and there's this cohesiveness, as you mentioned, wonderful connectedness within the company, and that culture automatically spills out to the public. And classic example of this is Zappos. Tony Hsieh, wonderful human being. Had the great blessing to meet him and share the stage with him at 5 different times over the years. And his entire company, or his, he's the CEO. Obviously, they were bought out by Amazon, but he's still there as the CEO. And he built it with the founder of the company based upon these 10 core values, which created this culture of what I see as extreme mutual respect. Like, everybody in that company is important. They're allowed to express their creativity and fun, and then obviously that is reflected in an extremely successful billion-dollar company.
It's huge.
There's a huge paradox that is looming toward us very quickly. People are increasingly becoming fried around their tech. And the new frontier is likely to be a desire for the human touch. And there's going to, and I know you have thoughts about this, so I invite you to comment. There's going to have to be some innovative response that resolves the inherent paradox of we are a wired society that longs for a human one-on-one touch.
Yes. I totally agree. Facebook fatigue, we call it.
Facebook fatigue.
Just recently I was at a conference here in San Diego last week, and this guy did a presentation and he used an example of New Zealand Air, or Air New Zealand. Mm-hmm. Brilliant initiative. They have this where, say you book a flight at New Zealand Air, they know who's going to be your flight attendant. That person's name goes into this custom email, and you start interacting with your own flight attendant who has a picture and a name. It's like, talk about humanizing the brand. And it literally helps that piece you're talking about. We crave for that connection. So you get on the flight, and Jeannie's your flight attendant and greets you by first name. You greet her by first name, and
you've already seen pictures of her kids.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, this is it. Is that it's the whole world becoming very. I mean, obviously, this thing cuts both ways, but I'm with you in the excitement, and especially in terms of companies becoming more. Let me think of the word, because it's a level of accountability and responsibility. But it's not just transparency. The tech companies do this really well, and they've modeled this where they get the best people because people want to work at Google or Yahoo or whatever. And it's so interesting that it's even in competing for the best talent that you have at this level of transparency, that people can look through you and say, wow, is that a company I want to work for? Mm-hmm. So I see this seeping through at sort of all levels, where a lot of what could be hidden in the shadows is now facing the light, for better or worse. And for me, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that I love that you brought up the word transparency, because something I've used for many, many years, and then not long ago, maybe in about the last 6 or 8 months, I began to hear this new term called selective transparency.
Nice.
Oh,
selective transparency.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you unpack that a little bit for us, selective transparency?
Well, as an individual, people are saying, okay, so I go to my Facebook profile, and I'm very open. I have pretty much all my settings is open, especially since they released the subscribe option last September, which means you can have, it's kind of like friending anybody. It's like opening up, it used to be 5,000. You still can only have 5,000 friends. But you can also have an unlimited number of subscribers, which means they can sign up to get your public post, anything you share to public. So I'm pretty open. But there are certain areas in my life I will never talk about on the internet.
Yes.
I talk about my health. I never talk about my romantic life, my relationships. People have no clue about that, and that's private. I'm not going to share it online. Share that with my close friends. So that's what I interpret to be selective transparency. I'm just not going to live in a glass house. I'm very strategic.
We are running towards the end of our time, but before, there's a couple of things I want to cover beforehand. First of all, we want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about where you're going to be and what you're going to do, but also this issue of transparent, how did you call it? Selective transparency. This is an enormous piece. This is a huge
Which
contribution.
ought to be taught in high schools and colleges. We both have 22 and 23-year-old
exactly.
children.
So I want to encourage you
Yes.
to come back on the air with us.
We can just do
and
that
to
topic,
spend
frankly.
the entire show
Yeah.
talking about selective transparency. And I think that this is a conversation that needs to be built out into a very, very public message. So before we do that, we want you to just share with our listeners where they can learn more about Mari Smith,
Sure.
and where they can contact you and what you're up to, where you're going to be.
Thank you so
in
much.
15
Barnett.
seconds.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah.
no, you have more than that. Come on now.
It's real easy. Mari Smith, M-A-R-I, Mari Smith. Just Google me. I'm at marismith.com, facebook.com/Mari Smith, twitter.com/Mari Smith. They can find out my book is on Amazon. The New Relationship Marketing is in any bookstores. They can get a free chapter at the newrelationshipmarketing.com, or just find it from my website. And I love to connect with people. It really, really was a pleasure to be on your show, guys, today.
More than a pleasure.
We
We're
loved having you. We can't wait to have you again live in person.
thrilled. And yes,
That's
absolutely.
usually how live works, isn't it?
Well, you know.
Live and in person.
Now you can do it live over the internet. See that? We can't Skype.
Thank
but
you for
that's the idea.
saving me on that
Yeah,
one.
I tried. You didn't save me earlier. You threw me right in. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you could bank it. I owe you one.
I'm banking it. Hey, Mari, listen, thanks so much. Again, folks, the book is The New Relationship Marketing by Mari Smith. We thank you, Mari, for coming on the show. We invite you all to check this out, and we invite you all to stay tuned because we'll be right back after these messages.